Good question. So the awakening is, for me, exploring. There was a massive disconnect. And the more that I explored avenues to challenge those beliefs, those perspectives, those stories that I was telling myself, the more that I allowed myself to be vulnerable enough to rewrite some of those beliefs and perspectives and stories, the more my world changed. It didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen quickly at all, to be honest. It was happened over many years.
Welcome, dear listeners, dear visitors of the Oliver Schirach Show, for the new ones and the ones which have been here before. If you're on a journey to find out more about yourself, about self-improvement, if it's on a spiritual, mystical way, here you're on the right spot. I'm Oliver. I had some depression, and which pushed me forward to find out more about what is life, how can I be more happy, more joyful, how can I bring my skills, my gifts to the world, what am I supposed to do. So that's my journey, and that's part of my podcast, is to find interesting people from different walks of life, if it's shamanism, near-death experiences, out-of-body, mystical knowledge, ancient history, a spiritual journey from depression to expression, and so on. So today we have Benjamin John, a former serviceman, a former military man from Australia, who shares with us his spiritual journey and the ups and downs, the rugged terrain he went through, the way he was programmed before military, during military, and how he has learned to reprogram himself. All the hardship he had, all the weird things he did to actually become a more joyful, happy, loving, open person, which is helping now other people, because he has went down into this hole, into this crevice, cave of despair, of darkness, and he's coming out on the other side, and now he helps with his knowledge. John is the founder of Warrior by Design, and he helps mainly ex-military people to be better. Also because he was diagnosed with PTSD and told he will not be able to live without medication, but he found a way, and he is sharing with us all these different tips and tricks, and I hope you're gonna enjoy it. Welcome to another Oliver Schirach Show. Here's Oliver, me, sitting together with Benjamin John, Australia, and I'm sitting here in Denmark. Welcome for the new listeners of the Oliver Schirach Show, and the old listeners. I'm on a quest for self-finding, for self-truth, for understanding, for better myself, for getting in the flow, for healing, and all these kind of beautiful things. And for that, I'm reaching out to people which have been in depression, which have shamanic background, which are Western medicines, which are doing all kind of things to grow, especially in the spiritual world. Who are we? How can we connect back to who we are? And today, as I said, there's Benjamin John sitting on the other side with his nice background, which I will have a few questions about. How it goes. And he's another guest I have on the show, which was recommended from Isha Patel. He was in her course. So let's see. We had some short talks before. So I know you're a military man or ex-military man. And let's find out who you are. Welcome, Benjamin.
Thank you. G'day, listeners. Who am I? What a big question, right? I think that's a journey for most of us, is figuring out who we are. But who I am currently is an ex-serviceman, but most importantly, a member of our species that's trying to find betterment for myself first and foremost, and I'm trying to support those around me in any way I can, in like this, having discussions and open-minded thing of, what we can do differently. Because one thing, if there's one thing we can all agree upon around the world, we can do things better, right? So basically what I'm doing now is, my first journey started as a young lad, I was really into sort of that spiritual side of things and even looking at things like witchcraft and religion and just trying to understand what's around me and what is, this mystical side of things. It wasn't too popular. I'm 41, 42. So the ego masculinity back then wasn't a popular thing to be looking at all this esoterics as a man in Australia. And if I wasn't drinking VB and having a Barbie, then it wasn't a popular sort of quest, but I did stick with it. And luckily I did have a couple of mentors along the way. I'd go to a couple of readers or clairvoyants, and for some reason, these women just kept taking me under their wing, and really sort of supporting me and helping me. I never really had any family that was into the esoteric side of things, and they weren't against it, but they certainly weren't or had any knowledge of their own. But basically from there, I started going down the wrong track. I started dabbling in things that probably could have seen me in jail or dead when I was a bit younger. So I woke up one morning, and it was after I had a car accident, and I was at my auntie's and I was kicked out of home and I couldn't go home until I things out. And the first thing I heard when I woke up in the morning was 13-19-01, Army the Edge. Now in Australia, that was basically recruiting station, trying to recruit people to go to the army. And from there, the rest is history. I told people I was going to join the army. They were laughing at me. I was this pot smoking, sort of having fun type of dude back then. And they were laughing at me, having a giggle, saying, "Oh yeah, you're going to join the army." And I did. I started training from there. I started my mode of transport from then on was my 2 legs, and I'd run everywhere I could and that was how I did my fitness. I just basically ran everywhere around my hometown. That's how I started getting fit. And then from there, I joined the military and was lucky enough to be tasked straight after basic training and my infantry training to go overseas as a new lead, they call it a lead, which is basically a newbie when it comes to the military. So I went straight from basic training, infantry training, straight into a commando unit and went overseas with them, which is nearly unheard of, to be honest. And from there, I still was exploring my spiritual side of things, and it was always there. It's always a part of me, always a part of my background. It was overly popular to be in an alpha dominated elite sort of special forces environment, and having this word love in my vocabulary, how dare I, and looking at those esoteric books and whatever. So I was always pushing against the grain, if I'm honest, in regards to masculinity and what was driving me internally, that there was something more out there. From there, I went overseas. I came back and I got out of the army, and that's when sort of things started going downhill. I noticed things while I was in, but then I got out and things really started going downhill. Mentally, I started unwinding and coming apart, I suppose, in some ways. And when you're in the military, they break you down and build you up to be what they want you to be. And then you come back to real civilian life, and they don't teach you how do you go back to or try and assimilate into that civilian world. It just, really hit me like a rock. And I went, probably, as I said to you, mate, it was probably about an 18-year journey, really, of trying to navigate who I am now and what that's going to look like and how I get out of this deep, dark, black clouded hole, which, it was a strong light there, I suppose, and a little bit of a fire to do, which it was great. I had a supportive wife, which is even amazing. A lot of people don't have that. And I had 2 young kids, and they were my desire to, for a long time was, I don't have the right to do anything other than be there and support these children that I brought into the world. So I kept fighting. I seen it as a fight back then. I don't now, but then I seen it as a big fight. I just had to keep fighting to live, to see the world differently, to experience the world differently, to find happiness, to find this thing that people mention called peace. And from there I tried everything from counseling to group therapy to assistance dogs. I tried yoga, meditation, studying. Obviously, I started going down that after a while, I started going down a path of self-discovery and personal development. And I realized the more that I stayed on this road of personal development, the more my world changed around me, right? It wasn't about someone fixing me or someone healing me or someone doing X, Y, and Z. Not to say any of those things didn't support me or help me. It was just really when I started seeing changes in my life was when I decided, no, I'm going to take it in my own hands and I'm going to start exploring for myself and working on myself versus trying to change the world around me.
Wow, you just opened so many questions with your introduction to who you are. Let me see how I point into different directions. If it's okay with you, like if you would describe yourself in 3 words, now and back then, because you already touched upon that you have been quite a different person before military, then again, a different person in military, and now you're again another person. I mean, there's like these different stages. Is there
Definitely.
anything you can see, like how you would describe yourself in like 3 adjectives, and why you would describe, perhaps before military and now, to give a
Yeah.
feeling to the listeners?
I'm going to try and do the 3 stages in 1 word each. I'd say the first one would be exploring. The second one, being the military, would be destroying. And the third one would be creating and being.
Okay. That's interesting. So the exploring part, from when to when was that? Like 12 to 24 or?
So the exploring part was probably, honestly, my early teens to right up until I'd say my early 20s, which I was still in the army then. So I did the exploring part through that, but I'd say there was definitely the destroying aspect of being in the military where, and when I say destroying, obviously it's a metaphorical word. It wasn't really destroying me, but at the time it was what I believed to be me and my identity and the way I saw the world was stripped away and created into something completely different. When I got out, it was I was really re-exploring who I was, but then I started to create who I was. I had a real rare opportunity. It took me a long time to see it, but a rare opportunity to create a whole identity again back in the civilian world, right? And to choose what that it was for me and to create that. Now, it took me a long time to see that's what I was doing. It wasn't just, I'm going to create who I want to be. It was, so yeah, that's really the differences between the 3.
Yeah. So when you explain it like that, so what I understand is the exploring of who you are as a teenager and then destroying who you were by external forces because of imposed, this is how you have to be as a military man, and stripping away all the things you had before and now to rebuild it, basically.
Yeah, definitely. And it was more than identity. It was when you're in the military, it's almost navigating your survival instincts and making them purposeful and useful for what we were doing. So it wasn't just as simple as changing your identity and I'm this and now I'm military. It was actually restructuring your whole, I suppose, fight and flight. There was no flight. There was no fawn. You're only taught one thing. And I was trying to explain it to some people and I say, what they want you to do is a car's coming smashing through a cafe and they want you to turn around and run towards that car. Now the natural instincts is to move out of the way and do what you need to do to survive. For us, we were taught, no, you got to turn around, look at that and run towards it the most survival way possible.
And how was that for you when you were not in military only, you also were going back to see family and friends or in between, right? Yeah, I also had like off days, I guess, like in a normal job. So how was it then when you interacted with your friends and family?
I was different.
Being in military.
Yeah, I was different. And I noticed it, I noticed I was different. Everyone around me noticed I was different. There's an unspoken, oh, this dude's changed. And it was from me, it was from them. It was like, sometimes it was spoken, but it was also an unspoken, oh, I don't know where I even fit in anymore in this, we call it civilian world, right? Civies and civilians, and they teach us to separate yourself from that, like you're somehow superior, which is obviously laughable and a joke, but that's what they teach you to think.
Okay, so the undercurrent feeling you had was like, I'm better than them? Knowingly?
No, it wasn't feeling. It was a way of being. So the only way I can put that is if you're in a workplace, you're the CEO, you know you're the CEO. You don't have to walk around saying, I'm the CEO and I have to, and I'm pushing out my chest. You don't do that. You just know that you're CEO. Everyone else knows you're the CEO. There was a presence, a total different presence that you exude and you experience. Some would see it as cockiness, others would see it as confidence, and it was a very different way of being and experiencing the world.
Did that hinder you in connection with your friends around you, or was it improving some stuff? How was it for you?
A little bit of both, I think, to be honest. I don't think I was ever I don't think I completely surrendered to that side of things. Like I was still the dude that would politely open the door for the elderly lady that's trying to get in or help her with her shopping. And that was always an aspect of me. I suppose it was never communicated, but for me, navigating the world, I suppose it did. It allowed me to have a confidence I never had before. And it was an unspoken confidence.
So it helped you in that way. So it was like a teaching for you as a person now as well, that you have lived that confidence.
Yeah, definitely, mate. I notice a difference in my moods, or if there's something happening in my surroundings and my environment that I don't feel like I'm in myself. It's very different now. I would say the confidence I have now is not bravado or egotistical, which I think it was a little bit of that with the military sense. The confidence I have now is more of a loving and trust of myself, trust of my environment, trust of who I am, versus before it was more of an alpha-ish sort of feeling, which is very different.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. So we touched up on the masculinity and ego and all these kind of things. So I'm interested, what is masculinity? And when we have masculinity, also feminine. So what are these two things and how are they the same or different?
For me, and it's only my opinion, I feel that they're one and the same. I feel that they work and coexist together. I believe that, like most things, we're told these things like find balance, find harmony, you find this, find that. I don't think, my own experience is I don't think that you can have that without a balance between the femininity and the masculinity. And I found my most masculinity comfortability in the femininity, which is quite amusing. It was once I was able to balance that femininity for myself and understand its true nature, that there is no difference other than, I suppose, the way I can create or react with it. It was me, it was a part of me, and it is me, feminine and masculine. So I don't personally see them as different per se, only the way that you move with them.
Yeah, it's the yin and yang, the dark and light part. We all have it, everything. So what is then the masculinity when you describe being in a masculine energy or being masculine? What does that mean for you?
So for me, I suppose what it means is it's more of a straight line. So it's more of a quick reactive, where when I'm in my creativity, my femininity, there's less of a need of time. I suppose time comes into it to a certain degree when it comes to masculinity versus femininity. This is my experience of it. So masculinity for me is, for lack of a better word, almost a sense of urgency, and femininity for me is more of an ability to step outside of that and understand that you're comfortable in, that I can work within both.
Well, yeah, also when you start to go down that road and start listening to people or talk to people, there's often this toxic masculinity and toxic femininity. And then there's the healthy, the healthy masculinity and femininity. How do you see that?
So for me, I think it's created. I think that your perception is in itself the driver of this toxic either, to be honest. I don't believe either is toxic. I believe that our perception of it and the way that we create with it and the way that we act with it is where the toxicity comes from. The energy itself, I don't believe there's toxic in anything. I believe that we have the ability to create with it however we like. We have the ability to create with it. Some things are more harmonic, and some things feel that they run in line with who we really are. And I think once we step outside of that, where we're not comfortable, is when we start potentially using toxicity in either the masculinity or the femininity, to be honest. And it's really, for me, having strong discernment on what it is my morals are, what it is my guiding star is, my soul, my connection. What is it that, how do I want to show up in either? And less than one being toxic, one being not, or the other being toxic, or them both being toxic. I think for me, toxicity is the perception and the driver versus the energy itself.
Isn't there an expression of the femininity or masculinity which is toxic? But
if I was to describe an example of what I would perceive as a toxicity, it would be removing the power of the other, removing the ability to create with the other. And I think, or enforcing a perspective or a way to create within either. And I think that, to me, is where the toxicity lies, is not necessarily in the actions or any of that sort of stuff. It's more in the imposing, right? And I'm giving direction, or I'm trying to manipulate the other. And I think that's where the toxicity comes. So there's many examples of that around the world that we could go into for the next 3 hours.
It's basically just, respect the others. Yeah, that's true. You already went into a little bit in your awakening journey, because that's what I wrote here. So when we talk in the spiritual world, you're awake or not awake, you're a dreamer. What does it mean for you to be awake?
Good question. A way I could describe that for me, there's many explanations out there, and I'll be honest with you, I think our community at times can get caught up in a lot of this type of descriptions and understandings, and I call it the fluff and kittens aspects of things. And why I've been in the rainbows and the kittens and the unicorn, and I love being in that space. There's also a realization that life isn't all that. And so the awakening for me is a real comfortability from within self, within your all aspects of self, from the ego to the shadow side, the light, the soul journey, and being able to explore that in a way that allows you to not hide from any of it, right? My personal opinion is that there can be a strong, there's always sayings out there, neutral bypassing, blah, 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 and all this sort of stuff. But my experience has been when we try and avoid, and it's not to sit within, right? Because we know energetic. I think I'd gather from your audience, there's probably a lot of talk about energetics and that. So I gather I can go here. But we know about energetics. We know about our connection to everything and anything and internal. And we know all that sort of stuff where, where energy goes, thought, for whatever it is, that basically whatever you think creates, right? You're a creator. So whatever comes into your mind as a creator, you can create that from any direction. So to me, it's not about going into these other aspects of energies. It's not about having to go into everything. I've done clairvoyancy. I've done mediumship. I've tried all these. I've tried seances and in a medium platform, not in the Ouija board. I've tried many types of things, and I've actually done the Ouija board things years ago. But what it is for me is not to become a master of, but to have experiences of, to be able to understand, to be able to have a perspective of, to be able to have empathy for, to be able to create from that example of awakening. So to me, it's almost, how much can I experience in this lifetime? I'm not going to be a master of none of it. But how do I empathize with someone from a perspective that they're trying to connect with me if I have no ability to be able to experience that, or empathize from some sort of personal experience, even if it is as a third person? So the awakening is, for me, exploring. So I've got my podcast is Warrior by Design. My saying is explore, create, and be. The important thing is to explore all aspects of life from whatever perspective you can. Then to be able to create whatever it is you want to be able to create within your soul journey. And then to most importantly, be what it is you want to be. That to me is true awakening. It's not a cross-leg. When I come in this, I'm thinking, am I going to be cross-legged in the yoga position, in lotus position, floating up, going up? That I quickly realized that wasn't going to be the case.
So did you try that exactly, sitting in the lotus position, meditate to find yourself?
Yeah, I did, mate.
What was your experience?
I had some massively beautiful experiences. I had some really enlightening experiences. I've tried other forms as well. Like I've tried marijuana. I've tried, St. Pedro. I've tried microdosing with, mushrooms. I've tried all sorts of things. But I had some way out there sort of connections with that. But my most, I suppose, conscious whole experiences were that in meditation without anything, was to be able to sit in complete silence for long periods of times with self, to explore self, to understand the mind, my consciousness, and beyond that. And the closest I got with self from all aspects was through meditation.
Wow, that's so interesting, because this week I've heard several podcasts, where they describe that the best connection to the higher self, to the universe, to what it is, through meditation practices, whatever way it comes, right? We think a lot when we think of meditation on India and the Eastern, but I'm sure Africa and South America, they have their own meditative ways, which probably are very similar or different. And they say that's like opening yourself slowly up to the vibrations, to the possibilities, to what is laying on the other side. Where when you take the ayahuasca and LSD and whatever drugs there are, it's kind of pushing through. And sometimes you're not ready for what's on the other side because it didn't do the work. You're just like, hey, I heard about this spiritual thing and let's do it. And I heard that in one podcast, I think it's from Next Level Soul, where he describes what he learned from some gurus. When you taste these drugs, these hallucinogen, mind expanding remedies, it's like having a wall and you want to see the sunlight, you just smash it with a hammer. And when you go on the meditative way, you basically build in a window. I don't think it's wrong. Some people probably need the sledgehammer to open up, because otherwise they simply don't get anywhere. So, but you nicely described that the meditative long periods of time. What is a long period of time? For some people, 15, 20 minutes seems long. So what is it for you, and how did you get there?
Look, to be honest, in my deepest of meditation, time kind of becomes non-existent. And the longest I've personally stayed, in a meditative state was between 3 to 4 hours. And
wow,
that experience, and I've done it over a few times. I'll probably say a handful of times I've had that experience. But it doesn't start off that way. It starts off with the normal stuff of quieting the mind and the surrounding noises and going through all those internal processes. But when I was able to surrender and relax and allow myself to really immerse myself in that experience, before I knew it was 3-4 hours gone. And do I remember all aspects and everything of that meditation? Nope. Do I remember, and it wasn't a sleep, definitely was not a sleep. Now, I've done these things in the bath, and I've had these experiences in the bath. It'd be pretty dangerous if you're falling asleep in the bath. But,
exactly. I was just thinking, like, you just slide under the water.
The poor physical body might have a bit of a panic there, but honestly, it wasn't sleep. I couldn't say I've ever really fallen asleep in a meditation. I'm lucky in that. And when I say lucky, I don't think there's any right or wrong, but for me, I'm very for my personality, I want to be conscious. I want to be conscious. I want to be conscious. I want to be able to have this experience. And I haven't really gone down that path of falling asleep. I experience it in the moment, but for me, in my here and now brain, how do I process 3-4 hours? And it feels like, a 10-minute meditation or maybe an hour meditation at most. How do I say I remembered everything in that time? It didn't feel like there was time.
Okay. But did you just straight ahead get into long meditations, or how do you build up to get there?
Yeah. No chance. I did not. No.
No chance.
I did not have the ability when I first started meditating to just go full and straight into that. No chance. So for me, I think I started with a lot of self-guided stuff, to be honest. I had mentors and coaches around me, and there was a lot of self-guided meditations from those people. And then there was also other types of guided meditations was where I started. I probably started with 20 minutes was where I thought 15 minutes was, again, my personality is like, oh, it's not worth it for me. I want to be at least doing 20. But even that I had to ease into, right? I had to be able to calm my mind enough to really relax in 20 minutes. And after a period of time, I started going into these meditative states. And again, the time just didn't equate to when I was in that meditation. I was coming out, it was 40 minutes. I was only going in for a 20-minute meditation. And it probably took about a year of commitment. For me, it took probably a year of commitment to where it became a process of not really feeling time and it not being a chore. But then now here I am years later after doing, probably about 3 years of that sort of practice where I don't meditate enough. I'm not sitting here meditating every day and you're in and out of things and life takes over and you find other things, I do other things now, I have other practices and bits and pieces. But again, I don't like bullshitting anyone. I'm in and out of them and I'm not always committed to them either. And I always find myself having to go back and check myself. And that's the ability I have now through this whole process is holding myself accountable. It's not beating myself up, but dude, you're having a rough time. Why? What have you been doing? Have you been looking at your practices? Have you been doing anything for yourself? Have you been doing any self-care? That type of stuff is where you get real understanding and accountability for how you feel, how you experience the world today.
You mentioned 3 years. So it's like you started with the meditation practices 3 years ago, or was it something you also had as a teenager because you mentioned these different experiences with mentors?
No, I never really knew what meditation was when I was younger. I did it occasionally, I think, not really knowing much about it. Or what it was probably more, laying down on the stars and just going into a bit of a relaxed sort of state.
Yes.
But no, I didn't really start any of that meditative sort of stuff until I come back, and I needed to work on myself heavily because of the dark cloud that was over my experience at the time, because of the perception I had of the world, which there was moments of looking at suicide and all sorts of stuff back then. But I got to a point of, I was lucky I had kids. I really was. I was lucky I had kids and a loving wife, but more so probably the kids. But after that, when I realized I had to do something, I started exploring. It took years for me to even try anything. My wife actually eventually conned me to go to one of her yoga classes. And that was the first time I really had an experience with the meditation for God knows when. And I had this meditation and in this yoga class, and just changed my world. That one meditation, for me, it changed my world. It really opened me up. Things I know what they are now. At the time, I'm like, oh, well, what's going on? And my third eye really opened up, and I was having all this experience. And it was almost like that world was flooding back into me, because before that, I kind of lost faith in the world and humanity.
Let's go a bit more into this deeper, darker parts of your life. For 1 year, I tried to have like a second podcast until I realized it's all kind of interlinked. the questions the guests I have, somehow it's all interlinked. My curiosity of self-finding, right? Of healing self. And for me, it started with creativity, right? How can I be more creative? How can I, if I work in an environment, how can the company be more innovative? And in the end, it's being in the flow, being authentic to yourself, know thyself, right? And I said I was in depression myself, and I'm still going in and out of depression. And I had some guests which say, I had a suicide in the year on my show, which, she took her life because she thought that this is the best she can do for everyone around her because she's just a burden. And then she had an NDE. I think she pierced the veil all the way through. No beings, no nothing. She just was everything in her NDE. And I start now to understand through all these podcasts I listened that there's several levels also there, right? When we're spirits. So she went just a few levels higher. And coming back, she wanted to be. And that's also what I heard from NDEers. Some of them get depressed afterwards because they have been surrounded by all the love and all the acceptance, and knowing they're not this physical body, knowing they're not the ego, and looking at that, wow, how did I identify? And then coming back into the 3D world, the materialistic world, the physical body, with all the egos, with all the judgment. And some go depressed after. And she said for 13 years, she tried to go back to this love. Now, she looks at it. So when you have this oppressive feeling coming, these low feelings, she accepts them because it's not her. She's not identifying anymore. So I think I'm in this phase of my life where I start to understand this is just a feeling coming through me. It's not me, but it's still very hard. So how was it for you when you say you have been in this dark place or dark cloud over your head and this meditation, this one meditation, going to what is a life-changing event in your life? Like, one was the car accident and hearing about the military. I can hear, right? It changed your life. And the other one was this meditation. So what was the dark cloud you had, and why was it there? Where's it coming from?
To me, the dark cloud was like, it was many things. It was made up of many stories and many experiences, and from childhood to military it was a conglomerate of experience of told stories and perspectives that I had up until that point. I think the biggest thing was, for me, was two things. One, I didn't like humanity. I realized that there was aspects of humanity that, which includes myself, right, that I just didn't align with. It was like, what's going on here? Like, how can we be this way? I've seen a third world country, and for all intents and purposes, from the Western perspective, had nothing. They lived in what we would call squalor in many respects in the Western world. But you know what I also saw? Happiness, smiling, generosity, love beyond anything in these third world countries. And those people that I experienced would give you the shirt off their back. They had no shirt, but they'd give it to you if you needed it. And I really started looking at the world. I think it crushed my soul to think that, why are we here? And as a military, as a country, what's our experiences? What can we give to these people that seem to have more things worked out than us, other than the way that they perceive, what we perceive as comfort? And the darkness came from a real disconnect with society, a real disconnect with myself, with my personality, with the country I live in, within the society I live in, with the way I perceive the world. It was a real challenge to my spiritual soul, really, of this way of living doesn't gel with me. Now, that's probably, and then I didn't like myself as a member of that species, as a being, and that was where this cloud formed. My perspective was, why do we exist? Like, really, why do we exist if this is what we are and who we are? How can we? I believed in such love and connect, and everything was sort of flipped on its head when I started experiencing all these different things around the world that a lot of people don't get to experience, right? From a third world perspective, and trauma and all other aspects of, I suppose, war-like scenarios. And the darkness for me was an unwillingness to connect with this society and this reality.
Okay. So it sounds to me like you were through the disconnection to society, it was also disconnection to yourself. And you said it was many stories, and what came up for me was like, what was the word? Beliefs, perhaps, about self, about life.
Definitely.
Which came with these stories, right? We
That's
learn
correct.
through stories. That's what so many say. We sitting around the campfire telling stories and making them come true. And so there were like false beliefs or false beliefs about self, if I can.
Yes, that's exactly what it was. That's what it was, mate. It was my true self, right? Not Benjamin, ex-army dude self, my true self. There was a disconnect from my true self, the soul aspects of me, the reason I'm here on this planet, the reason I'm here in this existence today. There was a massive disconnect. And the more that I explored avenues to challenge those beliefs, those perspectives, those stories that I was telling myself, the more that I allowed myself to be vulnerable enough to rewrite some of those beliefs and perspectives and stories, the more my world changed. It didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen quickly at all, to be honest. It was happened over many years. And sometimes it felt like I was clawing my way out to a different perspective. Like 18 years is a long time to be in that.
Yeah, so it's like, I think to remember when we had the introduction talk, you said 9 years military and 18 years after military.
No, so I was in the military for 6 years, and the 18-year journey basically started from, so what was I, 2005? Yeah, I'm just trying to do the math now. Yeah, it's probably when I first went overseas, which was in 2001. From 2001 to pretty much 2017, 2018 was when I really started to challenge my world around me. And before that, I was clawing my way through. You know, I was an alcoholic. I have an addictive personality. There's many things I had to figure out about myself. It was always everyone around me. It was their fault and that person, and they're all terrible. And at the start, it was this, those bloody civilians. They can't think for themselves. And all these stories I'm telling myself of creating this whirlwind of chaos in my life. But this is the thing, right? There were aspects of truth to everything. What was the difference between the disconnect and the trauma and the darkness is what I allowed to tell myself as the victim.
It's all there in my head and it wants to come out. And yeah, the disconnection, the cloud, you mentioned trauma, clawing your way out, and addiction. So do you feel you had like traumatic event or events over a longer period, which also influenced the darkness or your perception, the disconnection? Or because there's always these talks about what is trauma, and we all are traumatized, and different addictions we have and the worldviews. So how do you see there around?
So for me, the way I would explain that is the addiction aspect for me is anything that creates disease within your life due to an experience you're having that is something that you don't need, but it's something that you want. that's an addiction, right? Something that's creating a dis-ease experience within your life to something that you are hanging on to or creating within your life that is outward of you, right? That could be alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be TV, games, and whatever. It could be many things, food, right? It could be a billion things but to me, I haven't had, and I still got to be I've got to keep in my awareness that's an aspect of my personality, right? So that's something I had to contend with. The trauma aspect of things was, yes, there was few specific incidences that happened that were really traumatic, overseas in the military. So they would be diagnosed under PTSD, right? You know, when I started my journey on this PTSD train, I was told, you can't do anything about it. It's a scar. It's an injury. This is you for life. You're going to be on alcohol. That was one of my self-medications. But you're going to be on these drugs forever. You're going to be on these drugs forever. And this is you, mate. So get used to it. And that alone was probably the biggest disservice they'd ever done to me, was trying to give me the belief that there was no path forward. There was no betterment from this other than drugs and reliance on their system.
So when basically victimizing you. They're saying you're the victim. Better get used to it.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And for a large respect of my life, I played that role. I played that role with society. You know, I'm the victim. I'm this, I'm that. And again, there's aspects of truth to everything, right? But how deep you go into that is everyone's choice. And the more that I was able to explore ways that were better for me, ways that were able to allow me to, so I was very reactive, right? Firstly, that we were taught that in the military. We were taught to be very reactive. We were taught to do things within that. So to give an analogy, you got a cup. Most of society sort of sits around that half full, right? Maybe somewhere in 3/4 in high stress sort of job situations. What they wanted us to do in the military was sit around just up the top, just about to overflow. And all we needed was that to go over the edge, right? So that's the point where they put you in their trigger point of that's reaction. That's what I need from you. That's how they get you to run towards the car that's coming through the window. It's reaction. Instant. So that I was contending with that too, right? This is something that I was contending with through my experiences with society. But that victimhood and what I was told allowed me to stay within that for way too long. And that there was no path forward to gradually, instead of being here being here, I could gradually lower that cup, right? And get to that 3/4 mark, or maybe even half if I'm completely lucky, to where that reaction isn't happening straight away. Now, what I used to say to people at first, there was no thought there at all. It was just complete reaction. When I was able to get a microsecond of a thought that maybe I'm about to do something, that was amazing. When I was able to get a second, that was even better. When I got to that 2-3 second mark, then it became choice. When I had the awareness that something was happening to me, then it became a choice. Before that, there was no choice. It was just instant. So for me, I had to guide myself to a point of having that 2 seconds, of having a thought in my mind that I could catch, right? That I could go, hang on, if I can have that thought, then I can have a choice to be able to react to that or not.
Wow. Yeah. There's so many things in that you said, for me, at least. Now, you said a thought, and I know from Gary Zukav, he was also a high green beret military guy in the US, avoiding all whatever emotions.
Yeah.
So a thought comes with a feeling. I think that's from him or many teachers. Right? So there's like the feeling underneath the thought. And I'm diagnosed ADHD and, shouldn't be able to work without medication or longer periods, full-time work should not be possible for me. But when you mentioned this like overflow, like this instant reaction, I just came immediately to feel like, oh, that's typical ADHD, right? An ADHD person has like the fuse which just goes off right away, and you don't know why. And it just goes off. You can be all happy and something happens and you just explode. You react. So it sounds like the military is training you to be there. And in society, we're like, oh, you have ADHD and you need to take medications so you can live. So that's weird. But so you learned to get this instant reaction down to actually realizing, oh, there's a thought. So now I have a choice. When I mentioned also feelings and you were nodding. So how to get there and what caused you eventually to realize that there's like this instant explosion? Did you suddenly realize, hey, before military, I wasn't like, or how did you realize that, hey, this is not healthy? What happened in life where you just reacted and people probably called you out or yourself?
Look, I'll give you a billion examples of things in society that allowed me to do that, right? And it was, in the end, it was something that I thought threatened my existence of what I believed about the world, right? So I just get reactive about a lot of things. But to go back to what you were saying about what allowed me to do that, there was a couple of things. Firstly, I had to believe there was a ability to do something, right? There was an option to move forward. And how did I get to that place? I educated myself. And when I'm not talking about, I mean, I have got a master's and so on and so forth, but I'm not talking about that type of education. What did I do? I tried classes. I tried breathing techniques. I tried meditation. I tried understanding what PTSD is. I tried, understanding what it means, our parasympathetic nervous system and the amygdala and the chemicals that are in our body and all these. We have simple explanations for them, like the monkey brain, the reptilian brain, and all these sort of things. They're all words, but what I try to do is find a relationship for myself with these things. From understanding, you can listen to some amazing guys out there that have explanations of it, like Dr. Joe Dispenza and Lipton and all these type of people that are out there, scientists explaining the world to us. Joe Rogan, the dude's getting some awakened people on there that are conscious and trying to look at the world differently, right? And I've never been a follower, right? I've never been a follower, and that's probably why I've struggled so much in my life, is because I've tried to pave my own path in a lot of things. Now, what I do, and I've said it my whole life, is I take an accumulation of everything I've seen from everyone else and I put it in a little ball, plonk it in here, and then I try and sift through it to try and see what actually resonates and discern all that information for me. And it doesn't mean any of it, it could be all real, could be all amazing stuff, but it doesn't mean it's going to work for me, right? We do all have different personalities. We have different perspectives on lives, different experiences, different whatever. So when I started realizing that it's okay to see something different, it's okay to experience something different than someone else, right? Stop comparing my experiences with other people. Stop comparing what's happening with or what someone tells me to do compared to what I'm experiencing. It doesn't mean you don't try it their way first. Another thing I had to try and work out for myself is I have to at least try it once their way. Otherwise, I'm just going through life going, nah. So for me, I'd like to try things the way that it's presented to me first. And then I filter through that and discern for myself what's going to work and not work for me.
Okay. I had this question while you talked, and you kind of answered it already about when people tell you like, hey, do this. And you somehow, if you have tried it before, because someone else told you to look at life or do certain things a certain way and you tried it before, and sometimes it's new. If you tried it before and you found out for yourself it didn't work, will you then say, okay, I don't try it again? Or will you still try it again because you might be in another place now in life?
I found there was things that I've learned over my years that at the time didn't resonate wazoo to me. But it planted a seed, right? To where I got to a different part of my journey within my experience, to where that then made a massive difference to me. It was like, oh, that's the next key I need for X, Y, and Z. And it just happened to be in my journey, that's when I needed it. It did. So no, I don't think I ever look at anything and go, I'll never try it again. I
Okay.
personally haven't experienced, I'm just trying to, if I'm telling fibs here, if there's something I went, no. Honestly, can't think of anything where I said, there's no way unequivocally I'll never do that again.
Okay. Yeah. So it could be like you get the message once as a child. It doesn't work out for you because of all the experiences or where you are in life. And then you get it again 10 years later. It still doesn't work. And then you're like 38 or 45 or even 60 and the same message comes. And now suddenly you can apply it. Huh?
I found that for myself. Yeah, there's certainly been times in my life I go, I never thought I'd be doing what I'm doing or doing it the way that I'm doing it. And that's cool because that's growth in itself, right? Because if we're perceiving everything right now, then what's the point? If we know everything right now and this is the way it's going to be and this is the way we're going to do it forever, that was part of my dis-ease and dark cloud, was that type of mentality of not being able to challenge and grow with what I'm doing.
I just felt into myself being younger. This felt really safe or it felt really good to know, hey, this is how my life is going to be and it's just going to flow and it's not going to change. I mean, yes, it's going to change with some experiences because you're going to travel, you're going to see other people, but basically this is how it's going to run out, right? It's like you wake up in the morning, you do a certain type of jobs, you interact with people a certain way. After work, you do certain activities, and yes, you're getting older and you have kids, but basically it's the same. This feeling, can feel it again in me when I was younger, probably 16 to 20. This is like how I expected life to be. But you just mentioned we grow, so we change, we look at life different, we do things different, we add things to our life. And otherwise it would be boring. But I think for me, part of the growth and the resistance to life, people say don't resist. And I think that was or is still sometimes a part of my depression or my low energies when I try to resist to the change, which when you look back is actually helpful, but at the moment it doesn't look like because it's contradicting. So how do you see, did you have some of those experiences in life where you resisted something that came into your life so strong that you got low, less energy and stuff? And then when you look back, it's like, oh, I should have probably tried that a bit earlier.
Mate, that constantly happens in my life. It's still today. And again, I don't like to bullshit anyway. Have I got anything worked out? No. Am I in peace and harmony every day? Damn no. Hey, do I have a lot more tools in my belt? Do I have a lot more confidence in myself? And do I love myself enough to be vulnerable and discerning enough and look at myself and hold myself accountable in the moments that I am feeling down? That's where I'm at. That's difference, right? That's the difference is, yeah, mate, there's plenty of times where things are smacking me in the face and I'm like, no. One day it'll knock me on the ass and I'll go, okay, maybe I'll look on it, right? And I'll look at it and go, geez, I could have had a pretty different experience had I looked at this 2 months ago. But that's a part of life. And that the comfort for me is knowing and trusting and loving myself enough to be comfortable in that and know that. Has there been moments in my life where I feel, geez, I'm going back to that cloud? Yeah, definitely. Do I truly believe it and in my whole heart of hearts that I'll ever go back to that place? I don't think I will. Not the same anyway. Even if I get knocked back 1,000 steps, I don't think I'm going to see that step the same as I did when I first walked it. Because of my new experiences, my new perspective on life, my new knowledge and understandings, and you can't unknow things when you don't know them.
Yeah, or experience them. If you have had an experience, it's like it's there. So what are you doing when you get down in these dark places, or when you realize you did something wrong? You realize, like, for the 2 months you've been hitting with the information on your face, like slap, boom, continuously, but you just resisted it. How are you, is your inner talk, how are you working with this?
I, at first, want to give myself an uppercut, and then I laugh at myself. I giggle about it. I have a bit of a laugh at myself, and in a good way, not in a bad way. And you go, oh my God, like even me and my wife now, we'll sort of laugh at each other, like with things. We'll just go, oh, seriously? Like what, how funny is that? But what do I do now? What are my practices that allow me to be clearer? Firstly, for me, it's a constant exploration, right? I'm always looking and taking in information. But secondly, I'm giving myself a lot more space and time to be able to do things for myself. I ride motorcycles, or I ride a Harley Davidson, and I call it wind therapy, right? That's an aspect of my life that it really is. It's a wind therapy for me. I go to the ocean in the winter. I go to the cold in the southern parts of Australia, and I go to the, a cold water plunge. I have cold showers. I take time to meditate when I know that, dude, if you don't meditate, you're going to just crash and burn. Stop. I have this amazing meditation, and I look at myself and go, why haven't I been doing that for the last 6 months? Why? It's a massive question, that why. Why do we do this? Because habitual behaviors, and honestly, it's been a frustration of mine over the years. It's like, well, they say it's 27 days or whatever to start a habitual behavior and blah, 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 blah. But it seems to be bloody 5 minutes to undo it, right? It seems to be like the good ones. It seems to be a 5-minute undoing and there's a clear thing behind that, right? And this is the darker aspects of our society and what we live in. And these are things not to go into rabbit hole and start worrying and stressing, but the awareness itself and the knowledge to be able to look at things is, there are aspects in our existence in this 3D world that don't want that harmony, that from social media and from the things that we see on the TV to the screens and the technologies and the bings and the bongs and all the things in our life. These aspects, why they can be amazing, beautiful, and allow us to do things like we're doing today, can also create massive disharmony if we don't have a real discernment and a real discipline with how we interact with these things in life. To just pretend that it's just us and it's just our perception, I think it's a little bit naive. But to become a victim in that, oh, what's the point? Why do we do it? Why do we do it? Why do we try? Because it's who we are. It's what we are. It's our existence is that of creation and looking at a different way and better ways to create. So it's really important for me to have a full picture awareness, but come back to the essence of what I know is and stay really true to what my place or part is in this world.
Yeah. So that brings me perhaps going a little bit more woo-hoo-hoo now.
I'm happy with that.
Probably not going full deep woo-hoo-hoo, but one big question is a lot of times when you talk to spirituality, is there purpose to life? Did we set up the whole game of life, the matrix, the one consciousness, have our family, our soul family, we signed a contract, we came and said, this is what I'm going to do. This is like the purpose. Do you believe we have one of those? Or is it just basically, we just jump into this life and then we try out different things and then a purpose shows up? Yeah. Pre-planned, or it just comes and happens?
I'm going to say a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. And I think definitely I believe there's aspects of what on a deeper level of my existence here that are, if you want to call it a blueprint or soul journey or whatever words you want to put to it. I definitely believe that there's things that I've chosen and there's aspects of why I'm here. Why I say there's a little bit of column A, which is we're just winging it and we're finding our purpose and we're doing whatever, is because that's also true. Because we have amnesia. When we come here, a lot of people have an aspect of amnesia compared to their true existence of what we are, right? Is everything and anything. And whatever creator and however you want to put it, but the true essence of our original existence is what we are. But there's amnesia from that as we come into this denser reality, and that's my personal belief. I mean, there's many different teachings, many different points of view on this. But yeah, I would say that there is definitely column A, but probably more of column B.
Yeah, so it's got like a bigger purpose, and then how we get there, it's like the free will, the trying out. What? Now, you didn't have a near-death experience, at least I don't think so. But what I also heard from 2 or 3 people, it was like the near-death experience was pre-planned if they don't step up to like the bigger picture purpose. So they're kind of diverting themselves, instead of being in service for people as a coach, as a medium, as a healer, as I don't know what. And they're just drinking, partying, having fun. They basically ended up having a car accident, or car driving into them, or I don't know, disease, being raped, being whatever, things like that. And then they get to the other side, come back and changed, and basically stepping into the bigger picture. Do you have some kind of experience like that with the meditation, with the drugs? Did you connect with your soul on a different level, getting out of the body, look at yourself, talk to aliens? Some people talk to aliens, talk to Jesus or Buddha, or I don't know what's in Australia. The holy
dingo, mate.
The dingo.
Yeah, look, honestly, I have, mate. I've had those, I suppose, what I would look at as deeper connections with my existence here and what I am. And I have had them from many avenues. Those things that you talk about of sort of slaps in the face. I have had a few real near misses in my life I'm very lucky to be here. And I've always kind of felt like I had a bit of a guardian angel, which I now look at a different light. That is me, that is existence, a part of everything. So I've always kind of felt that, because I'm like, how did I not die in certain circumstances, and there was many layers to that. But I also have had what I would call near-death experiences, but chosen, and not in the sense of suicidal, not in the sense of I'm going to die, in the sense of kind of stop breathing and almost like asphyxiation in a sense. I've had those type of experience to where I have gone to a point of what you'd call the other side, I suppose. And I've had different deeper connections with the totality of existence. And when I'm in those real deep, high level areas of experience for myself, very overwhelming, it's weird. It's a real calm, but full on overwhelming experience. It's almost like it'd almost be for me sitting next to a train track, having a train rush by you, knowing that, it's that close to you, but at the same time, you're safe and it can't touch you, and having that whole experience. And I have had that. And on a couple of occasions, what have I connected with? Well, look, I believe I've connected with what we call spirit. I've connected with what we call lost souls. I've connected with what we call alien. I've connected with a lot of things, I think. Do I necessarily agree with our interpretations, experiences, and descriptions of them? Maybe not as much. And in my deeper experience, connection with those things has been in the essence, like in the true essence of the point, is there is no separation that from any of it. I can look at those darker aspects and be comfortable, because I know that there's no separation from that of the light and love. And it's not in the sense that I want to be a part of or experience. It's like anything in life, right? And this is where this addictive personality is. And we can choose what our experience is going to be. Just because I see or experience something, i.e. just because let's say I smoke crack or whatever I do, and I have those experiences, or let's say I have heroin or whatever, and that's that experience. There's a choice, right? There's a choice to continue that. Some would say there isn't, and that also is an element of truth to that. But there's also a choice that there is, right? And all these other things that we experience in life, and we label them, we call them names. My honest opinion is I've got no fucking idea. I can put words to them. I can describe them. I can try and understand them from what we know our existence to be. But the reality is when I have those experiences is I really don't know. I really don't. Like in the honest God sense that I could go to whatever and say, hand on heart, I 100% know. Well, I don't. I've had those experiences. I've had those moments. I've had those descriptions of things. But my conclusion is I can only describe them within the limitations of my language.
So you said you had several of those experiences. Is there one or two of those that pop up? And what did you do? How did you get there? How did that experience come to you?
Yeah, look, there's times where I've been meditating and I've gone completely, I would say, if you've ever done sound deprivation and the darkness where it's light and sound deprivation, if you've ever done anything like that, that's probably the closest I could say that the experience was, even though there was sound and there was light, it's a real feeling. You kind of experience it to understand what I'm saying. But the other side of it is too, I have had those experiences with the aid of Moana, with the aid of St. Pedro. Oh, I can't even remember what it's called, but there's like a shamanic powder that they can blow into your nose during ceremony and stuff, and can't remember what it's called. Oh, yeah,
with the little tube.
Cambo,
and then
yes, the little tube.
Cambo is the frog.
That's the frog. I've done that too. Yeah, the toxins. Yeah, so I've done that too. So in those moments, I've had some really intense experiences with things that I can only try and describe with my language. But in essence, it felt all of them in the point of, I suppose, its pinnacle was like oneness.
Yeah, but that's what we describe. It's oneness. And meditation, it just brings me to the memory of like when you really start to get calm and you're just there. I think it's beautiful. I don't have the experience with having sound but no sound, and having light but no lights. And when you said deprivation, and I know there's like these, how are they called? These floating tanks?
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
Have you tried one of those?
I have, yeah. It was.
Oh, how is that? I haven't tried.
To be honest, I was a little bit mixed of how it was gonna go, and again, it was another opportunity to learn how much I've grown to be able to be in that dark, silent place, floating. It was a testament to how far off in my journey and my experience. How was it? It was bloody beautiful. I went into a meditative state. I think it went for 2 hours or something. I'm pretty sure they allowed you to have 2 hours or something like that. It might have even been an hour and a half. But it was the initial experience. Time just fell away, and then before I know it, I'm being asked to step out of the pool.
So how is it's a dark room, right? No light. You're laying on some kind of a rubber mat in the water, or how is it?
No, so what it is, it's sulfuric. Like it's all these sort of natural minerals that are in the water. So it's a real sort of slimy type of experience. It allows your body to be weightlessness within the water. It makes you more buoyant. So you pretty much just float in there, right? There's no real, in my experience, there was no real threat of sinking. It was like your body just didn't have the ability to sink because of all the minerals that were in there. And then you have the option. There's lights in there. So that's the other thing. There's choice, right? Again, there's choice. How dim do you want the light? Do you want a little bit of sound? Do you know what sound? See, there's all these choices. I decided to jump in and have completely dark, completely silent, completely sort of everything. You put the earplugs in and just float there. At first, it was bloody amazing. Like just to have this weightlessness, I mean, I've heard of these things about bringing you back to the womb and all this sort of stuff. But for me, I didn't have those experiences. It took me straight to the stars, and it was almost felt like a weightlessness in that sense. There was no gravity, there was no this, there was no that, and it just allowed me to have a magical experience, which again was quite out there. And before I knew it, I'm coming back, and I hear on the speaker that they're supposed to guide you in with a little bit of gentle music. Well, I missed the music, and it was, you got 5 minutes of, you got 5 minutes to gather your thoughts, and if anything, I'd probably give them a little bit more of a, if any feedback is like, maybe give someone about 15 or 20 minutes after that fact.
Yeah, it's two things came to mind here. One was like when you said this slimy thing, I just thought of Neo in the Matrix when they get out of, when they're unplugged and they have this slimy whatever liquid they're sleeping in. And the second was you have this little music coming and bring you out of the meditative state. It's like when you have these guided meditations. And I was like, yeah, now wake up and enjoy your day. Okay, so where was all the rest of the guided meditation in my case?
Yeah, and I think for me, it would have been maybe a little bit more pleasant experience had I had something a little bit longer on that end. But in saying that, it was okay because they were the people where I went, they were very nurturing after the fact, and there's place for you to sit down and be quiet and soft music and sort of simulate, just get kicked out into the street, which is great. There was teas and all sorts of stuff there. Even things to pamper yourself in the way of soaps and lotions and perfumes and aftershaves. And so it was pretty pleasant in that regard. It was just that initial integration of a ground, if you say, was, for me, it took a bit.
Yeah, so where did you do it in Australia for the people which listen to it and say, hey, I want to do it. So can you guide them?
It was in Sydney. That's all. That's as much information as I can give you. I'm a bit of a drifter, mate. So I travel around a fair bit, and I'm guided where I go in those days that I'm away. I even found myself in a church, which I never thought that I would have done in my time. But I found myself in a church and looking at Jesus and having a bit of a meditative experience in the church too. But, I kind of allow myself when I'm away, and I have the opportunity to be internally guided to what I want to do, right? And I'm blessed in that way to be able to have that opportunity. And I know that because it's not everyone has that opportunity. So yeah, I know it was in Sydney, and I believe not like Parramatta sort of area, I'd say.
It's just also for when you share your experience, how it was there. It's like also feedback. It makes someone who thinks about it being in the Sydney area or Australia and thinking to go, then they know, okay, this is a safe place to go. Because I just like this really weird feeling when you said, you get out of this water tank or floating tank or gooey liquid tank, you're completely meditative, all calm, and then they just put you out in the middle of New York. Okay, goodbye, thank you for...
Yeah, that would be traumatic. And look, it's not slimy. Exactly. It's not slimy in the sense of slime. It's the sulfuric. If you ever gone to sulfuric bars or sulfuric sort of ponds or springs or whatever, sulfur naturally has this little, even what's the other, bore water. It has a lot of sulfuric sulfur in it as well at times, and it has a kind of feel to it that has that a little bit of sliminess, but it's not really slimy. It just feels a little bit interesting.
Yeah. So people, it's not Ghostbusters slimy.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, having this experience, getting out and then actually being able to integrate it afterwards in a calm place before you actually step out back to on the street. And I think it's a good idea not to do it at the end of the day when they basically have to kick you out. I don't know how their procedure is. If they have, okay, we end 1 hour before, no one can stay longer than 1 hour before we close the shop or something like that. So people,
it's definitely book slots. Yeah, from what I was saying, they book slots, which allows you to, you're not rushed type of thing. Yeah.
And then we go back to the grounding. So when you're in this experience, in this floating experience, so means like you're more in the upper chakras then, or are you basically connected with all the chakras still?
Again, the ego wants to say no on case it's all, but I'd say definitely in those moments, the heightened moments, I'm more aware, or my physical experience is certainly quite in tune, and it almost feels like you're in those higher chakras, but you're always connected to all. From my personal experiences, I don't think we have these things saying that your chakra's closed and this and that and all these sorts of things. And I think there's aspects of truth to some of that sort of stuff. But for me personally, I've always felt that there's never ever any disconnect. It's all choice, right? It's all choice of perspective and understand and, what I'm allowing in, what I'm not allowing in. And that's me, not necessarily the chakras, if that makes sense.
So if you have the feeling you're flying off, or how does it feel when one is not connected, grounded? Yeah, not connected, not grounded. But for the people which listen so far and are not turned off by what we are saying, and they say, hey, I've never really listened to anyone talking about that. So what is it? How does it feel when I'm not grounded?
So
Do you
to
have an
me,
explanation?
yeah, the only way I could probably explain it is you're really not conscious and you're not present in the moment, right? You're really heightened, you're really energetic, you're almost like a buzzing sense of awareness. It's an overarching sort of awareness, which is great, and it's great to be in that place at certain times, but to wander this 3D world in that overarching view of the world can be quite challenging when you're dealing with the 3D grounding sort of stuff. So grounding for me is being conscious, present, and in the moment. There's a lot of explanations around grounding also, but for me, what it is, it's connection to Gaia, right? It's connection to Mother Earth. It's connection to that our body transmit this experience on, and that traditionally, energetically, there's a lot of things that come with grounding. You're dumping ions and the scientific aspect of things. We're dumping ions and we're balancing and the positive and negative sort of neutrons and finding, we can call it alkalining our body. We can call it many things. Like we're finding that sort of, it's allowing us to connect to the world, Gaia, the ground, and allow ourselves to sort of reconnect energetically to that we're around. And that grounding necessarily it's not, oh yeah, I'm floating, I'm down, I'm up, I'm around. It's about find that experience that we're walking around this 3D world that is most in tune with us being able to be consciously connected and in our heart space and in a loving, positive place.
Yeah, so I interpret it being able to absorb what's going on around you and to react on it instead of like feeling disconnected. It's like when you're in a conversation and you simply cannot really grasp what the people are saying and you don't really know how to answer or ask questions. You're just not here really. You're just, in your mind, just somewhere else, I think.
Definitely.
I would add to that. Yeah,
Definitely.
You mentioned also with the ions and all that stuff, that for the people which are not really aware of, that means basically take off your shoes with all the rubbers, especially the rubber shoes when it's raining, take off your socks and stand on grass or earth or into water, because water is very good. So that's why people normally are more creative when they take a shower or are in their bathtub. And what I heard as well, to get all these ions and this electric charge, which I'm not 100% sure how it happens. I think it's just being, eating, thinking, working. We're kind of charging our body, and then we're not in the same, energetically speaking, like really energetically, electrically speaking, not in the same charge as Mother Earth. So when you step into flowing, moving water, I heard that's really fast, removing this, strictly speaking, overcharge or undercharge. So we are again in the same frequency and electrically charged as Mother Earth, because it's a much bigger, physically speaking, much bigger bowl than we are. So it's balancing us out and neutralizes us, so to speak, physically. Do you have an experience where you were completely disconnected for a longer period, like ungrounded, and how that affected you?
Yeah, definitely, mate. It was when I became suicidal. That to me was a massive disconnect from the world around me, from the earth, from my society, from my species, so there was a massive disconnect there. And I look back on that now and I can say that in that moment, if you were to tell me this type of explanation, I probably would have punched you in the face and said, you're an idiot. When I can look back on that experience, I can go, no, I can really see that disconnect. I can really see a disconnect from myself, from my planet, from my from my community, from my family, from myself, first and foremost. And these energetics that we talk about, there's more and more research scientifically out there, and there's a lot more understanding coming forth, and there's a lot more out there than when I first started this journey. It's a lot of common sense, to be honest, when you think about it, that from the energetic sense, it's just like putting an iPhone charger in a Samsung slot. It's not gonna connect. It's not gonna give its best. It might give it some charge, but it's not going to charge at the best optimal rate. It's not going to give it its optimal experience. And I think the more that we're able to do these things like grounding and connect with our surroundings and nature, and not everyone can. Most people can find, you don't need to have a massive park. Most people can find a piece of grass or something, or dirt or sand, or, as you say, the water is a huge one. And natural water sources are better, because that energetic flow is it's natural, right? It's true. And we have a true resonance on this planet too. And I think the more that we disconnect ourselves from that, from being around these electronic devices, wearing rubber-soled shoes, Wi-Fi, and all these other things, it's none of this sort of rabbit hole stuff. It's just reality, Energy affects energy. And these other things around us contribute to our symbiosis and our ability to be harmonic with our surroundings.
Yeah. So when you were having this massive disconnect, getting grounding would have helped you at some of that. And I can imagine in the height of it, being unaware of all these spiritual, mystical teachings, someone coming to you say, you need grounding, you like get super angry. Like, what the fuck are you telling me? You don't know how it is to be where I am. Right?
Totally,
it's
man.
kind of feeling,
yeah.
Like, put your feet in the water. Here is the stream. Sit on the bridge and just dabble your feet in the water. You will feel better. Sit at the tree, hug it, like with as much skin as you can, because also the tree has a lot of water. So I think there's also
100%.
something there with that. Yeah. So let's see. So who are we then? You said you're disconnected. So who are you? Who are we when you say to be more connected?
Who are we as a species? My interpretation and belief of that is we're an existing organism that lives on what we call a planet called Earth, that some call Gaia, that has Hachamama, yeah. We're a species that has a connection with that. And I believe we're very disconnected as a whole in a lot of our societies at the moment with that connection. There are luckily a lot of choices and ways to be able to do that. And more we're finding newer, more innovative ways to be able to have these experiences, that people that have got millions of dollars can go out and buy a sun in their room and have all the beautiful aspects of these light beds and things that are out there, and all these mats and that dump these ions. There's a lot of technology out there that's bringing that to us. And I think it's important because not everyone has the opportunity. There's people live in high rises, in apartments, in concrete city that don't necessarily have that ability to just jump out like I do. I'm very blessed. I can just walk outside and there's Mother Nature. But we're very disconnected, I think, in our current way of living from our true existence as a species. And it doesn't mean that we have to not have these aspects, but we're not taught the other aspects of what we are as an energetic being, trying to have a symbiotic relationship with our planet. I think we're very disconnected with that.
Yeah, and who are we when we get out of the species? When we connect on the other side, when we remove the veil, so to speak. So who are we there?
Well, there's many teachings on this, and I don't want to be arrogant to say that I have the way, but my understanding of what is beyond is connection to the whole in the simplest, most, and it's frustrating people. Oh, what's that mean? That's just bloody. There's so many teachings out there, from a religious point of view to a shamanic point of view to a spiritual point of view to a clairvoyant to a witch. What is it to me? Moving from what we would call a dense vibrational experience to a more I don't like the word higher, to a lighter, faster, vibrational experience that is beyond this physical existence, and that allows you to connect with everything and beyond. Whatever your point of view is, that's everyone's sort of cup of tea.
Okay. And where do you get the knowing from, where to go, to what your next steps are? Could be like today, could be the next months or the next years. For me, I ask personally for myself because I'm floating around left and right, and I'm doing an apprenticeship, but I'm not really happy. I'm in Denmark, but I'm not happy, but I have my kids here. So it's like, for me personally, it's like the compass is completely, it's going left and right. So how do you get into this state where you say, you know what, it seems hard right now, right? I don't have the money, I don't have the job, but I know I'm going this direction, so I'll do that because I know I'm going the right direction. How do you get in connection with that intuition?
That's probably where I'm more aligned with. The intuition definitely is inner knowing intuition. It's stopping, breathing, and listening. To me, it can be very hard, and this is where, again, meditation can help with, breath technique can help with. But how do we know? In as respectfully as possible, you're not dead yet, so you're in the right position. You're in the right direction. So does it always experience as it's pleasant and beautiful and fluffy kittens? But this is why I tend to, I suppose, try bring reality from that experience a lot. And I have plenty of those beautiful moments, and it's not that they're not available to us and they're not there and they're not around us. They're around us every moment. We just choose to, it depends where we're focusing our attention, right? But for me, really being connected is, it seems easy, but you still got the hard shit around you. You're still having those experiences that before you would have seen as, oh, this is a drag, or this is that, this is whatever. That doesn't change. It's not like everything just flips and those things don't exist anymore. Your experiences, my experiences of them, that change. My perspective of it changes because I have a higher vibrational acceptance and, I suppose, cup to be able to transition through those experiences. And that's where these practices can be very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. And definitely, I had a few talks in the last days. It's like being like in a winter storm in a forest and having this knowing, if I continue this way, I'm freezing, like I'm shivering, I'm hungry, and my legs are cramping up. But I know if I continue, I will get to the shelter. I will get somewhere where I can rest and have what I need for the time, and then I go out again. But if you don't know that you will reach there and you're in the same situation, you feel hopeless. You feel like giving up. So I think that's where I'm going. Having this intuition, this inner knowing. And you say it like sitting down, breathing, meditation helps or has helped you. Have you been in the situation where you didn't know where you go and it was really hard and you were like,
Bloody
I don't want
time.
to continue?
Yeah, all the bloody time, mate. Yeah, all the time. And I even to this day, I still have those moments. Like I still have those moments. Again, it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop me having those moments. It's not like there's just now perfection. The difference is I have new awarenesses. I have new tools. I have new ways to make myself accountable in these moments. And that it's like people call it the inner star, the northern star, the inner light, the guiding, the soul mission, the guiding purpose. There's a billion different explanations for it, but the most comfortability I found was in knowing and finding some sort of faith. And I'm not talking about faith in religion. I'm not talking about faith in anything specifically. I'm talking about a faith in who you are, what we are, and a faith of any sort. If we have a faith of something greater than ourselves, even if it is just ourselves and it's our higher self and we are everything, who knows? Like having some sort of faith in something, even if it is just yourself, has allowed me personally to be able to continue on, as you say, there's not necessarily a destination, there's not necessarily a specific path, but I have faith that my existence is just not null and void. I have faith that the existence of our species is not just to be, not just is. There's, I suppose, more to it. And it's the easiest way I can kind of explain it, but there's obviously a bigger explanation of that.
It's beautiful. And I promised you to ask about the background. So I think I heard some woman voice in the back, and you have a family, right? So it's evening for you. So I think to close this talk we had, the symbolism from the backdrop you have, it's not a poster, it's a cloth hanging with some nice bluish and purplish colors. For me personally, I see some Viking Ukradrill or whatever it's called from the Viking, the tree of life on my left. I don't know. I assume that's your right shoulder, and then we have some Buddha on the other side, and then above your head we have another tree of life somehow with, like the arms are like the wings, and then the belly is like the circle. So what are these symbols behind, and why did you choose to have that behind you?
In all honesty,
yes,
these symbols specifically don't mean one thing to me. What they are is a journey of exploring things beyond our current understanding, beyond our Western ways of living, beyond our Western taught philosophical understandings of who we are. And the most comfort I found was trying to understand different cultures, different ways of thinking, Eastern, Nordic, and beyond of pagan, some of our traditional things. And it doesn't mean that I identify with these things, but what it is remembering our roots. Trees of every life form have some sort of root existence. And the more I can explore that for myself, and this could be controversial, but my beliefs and what I get told and what I get taught and my experiences don't necessarily all align. And there's people out there that look at the world from a flat earth perspective. Now, is that necessarily my feeling and understanding? Well, it's not. But you know what? I'm also wanting to explore that with them, with that. And can I say from my limited awareness of dimensional existence that there's not an element of truth to what they're saying? I think I'd be arrogant for me personally to say that I know the answer. I haven't been out of space, so I haven't seen it physically for myself. I haven't had the honor of, in this physical body, being an astronaut. So while I might have been taught ways that resonate with me probably more than others, doesn't mean I'm not willing to explore those other ways. And that's what all this is.
So it is basically a combination of different beliefs, right? So I see it right, like the Buddhistic with the Om sign, the Ugaradril tree, and I don't know the tree above you, where is that from? Maui or something?
I believe so, mate, yeah. No, I don't know.
Yeah, and then you also have the triangle in the middle that also seems a little bit Viking or Nordic, I think. But it is an assembly of different mystical and spiritual teachings. Now that you're in Australia, how is it to connect with the Indigenous in Australia and that belief? Have you had any contact, any teachings, how to about reality?
I'm on the start of I'm actually, yeah, look, honestly, mate, I'm on my start of my journey with that one. I was very naive to the beautiful and wealth of knowledge of the Indigenous people of this land that I reside on. And it wasn't certainly of a purpose, ignorance. It was, I grew up in the western suburbs of Victoria, and there wasn't a great deal of, unfortunately, Aboriginal people for me to even have experiences with. And I had understandings of a little bit of an ignorant awareness of Western society, of what I was told of their purpose and everything else. And as an adult, I've had some beautiful moments. I've been to places like Uluru. I've had the opportunity to sit with one of the elders there unfortunately in a touristy sort of sense, but at the same time, didn't negate the experiences I had. So that's the journey that I'm on. I am on really trying to connect with the land that I currently reside on and I walk upon in Australia. And the Indigenous culture is something that I hope I can be honoured with having deeper connections with that, right? Because that's something that I have to be invited into. I can learn what I can from the Western teachings and from the sort of outward perceptions of things, but to be really invited into that space would be amazing. Would be, if I could ever be honored in that sense, that would be amazing.
Yeah, it's invited. It's the right word. I've traveled last summer from Denmark to Sweden, helped a friend, and then I went all the way to the Trekantsrøset. It's where Norway, Finland, and Sweden connect. And there I met Sami person, which is the northern people which travel with the reindeers, the indigenous from these lands. It's also going up to Russia, I think. So it's like Norway, Sweden, Finland, Russia, this region. And they want to basically have their own land back. And I talked for 2 hours, and she was an ambassador for UN or UNESCO, and she traveled the world. And what I saw up there was not what I expected. Because I saw the drawings and the way they lived, it was like what I knew from the Native Americans. It just looked so much like we believe how they live. But she didn't want to share her wisdom with me, just scratching the surface. Whenever I went a bit deeper, I could see she diverted and went somewhere else. So you have to be invited. Wow. And at least the Sami people do not feel comfortable enough to invite the white people into their knowledge. They're afraid of, we will use it against them out of history. Right? So you have to be invited, and you need to see, if you listen to that and you have these experiences with whatever indigenous people, it is an invite, and it's a message of trust, that they trust you.
Most definitely. And I don't think it's something that should be taken as a personal or in an egotistical fashion, because I actually, in a lot of respects, completely agree with them. Unfortunately, the knowledges that they have not been respected over the years in any Indigenous culture, to be quite frank, by the people that have dominated the lands. And for me, the sadness comes, with not only the devastation and atrocities, but I'd hate to see these beautiful cultures be lost in some respects. That would be devastating.
Yes, and I'm really afraid of that. When we are talking about Australia, I also saw some documentary, like how these Aborigines have been put into civilized little villages, and how they basically just deteriorate. Drug addiction, alcohol addiction, diabetes, all the Western diseases. And we say, the Native Americans, the shamans or the indigenous from South America. Yeah, because we push them in there. I think sometimes it feels like it's wanted from some higher force to disconnect them, so we cannot learn. But could also be just happenstance, ignorance.
Yeah, look, I think that's just some of that stuff that I was telling you about before, about researching and having your own journey with things. That there are aspects within this reality that aren't necessarily more for our existence here. And the more we can become aware of these type of things, the more that we can have a conscious approach towards making sure that type of thing that type of experience doesn't overwhelm the true experience of what we're having. And these Indigenous people of the world have some ancient knowledge that unfortunately, even maybe over time, may actually, some of these newer approaches may actually help our species as a whole moving forward with different understandings of science and other things. But there's a mending and relationship that needs to be of trust, and that needs to be really found and built to be able to really benefit from those type of connections.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking as a Swiss person, very Central European, if you want to say so, it seems like we lost our indigenous ways. We had like Gaelic was the language which was spoken most of Europe before Latin, and I don't even know where English comes from. It seems like it suddenly appeared out of nowhere. It's also said, energetically speaking, it's the lowest frequency of any language on the planet. It's the easiest to speak and learn, apparently, but yeah, it's the lowest in energy. And then you think of Gaelic, and not too long ago, I heard that there was a library from the Druids, some from the witchcraft and the wizards and the witches from Europe, which was burned. 200,000 books were burned. And like, wow, I didn't know that. Something destroyed the indigenous culture and knowledge in Europe up to the north. So that's the Sami people are in Scandinavia, all in the north. So let's hope we go back to that. And I'm really also on a quest on learning more there. So I can see now your wallpaper, wall cloth in the background is basically showing that, going back to all these different things. Yeah, roots. And we are lucky that we had India protecting themselves so good against the English. The English took a lot of material worth, like the gold, the rubies. They took what they could, but they couldn't take the temples away because they're too big and too old, way older than we believe they are. Like they're more than 10,000s of years of age. And the technology which built them it's not a handcraft and a sizzle with a hammer. You cannot have a polished granite wall with that, which is like 12 meters with half a centimeter, not perfect. It's like, how did they do that? So we still have the knowledge from there, right? They were able to hide documents and books. So that's why we have the Ayurvedics, and so many people go on the spiritual path with the Ayurvedics and yogics, because they are, unfortunately, the indigenous culture which still has the documentation, where Aborigines probably also had libraries and books, but it was diminished. And the African cultures and the shamanics in South America. And yeah. So we're rebuilding, reconnecting, and it's a long journey. For some people, it's hard. It's going fast, right? They have like this near-death experience, stuff like the meditation, which is opening up the third eye. And for other people, like for me, it's like 13, 14 years of working and working. It's a very slow process for me. It's like since 2010, I think. And I'm still not haven't opened up my third eye. But thank you so far. Is there anything I forgot in this back and forth puzzle talk we had so far that you really want to get out? An advice, a tip of the day, call to action or something?
The only thing I'd say is, Noel, firstly, mate, I like the way that things have progressed and the way it's naturally evolved, and it's the path it's gone on, the conversation. I would, if anything, is trying to find a place of connection first and foremost with self and our surroundings, and then others and our planet and our species and our universe and our teachings and our ancient wisdoms, and finding connection, whatever that is for you amongst all of this. And it may be, excuse my French, it's not French, fuck it all, right? And I don't want to be bothered. I can't be bothered with any of it. And that's okay. I spent probably at least 10 years in that place, I'm just going to drink myself stupid and party hard and do whatever and shut out the world. But now there's a real fulfillment in that connection for me. And the more that I allow myself to be vulnerable to connect with myself and my surroundings and those closest to me and beyond, I think that's where the purpose comes. Faith isn't necessarily something we have initially. I think faith is something that we build, something that we can trust, and and whatever that faith is for anyone is worth looking for.
Yeah, we build our faith, we build our path and our self-trust, I think. It's the trust in self.
Definitely.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Where can people reach out to you? Because you're also, we didn't really talk, you're mentoring and coaching people. So where can people reach out to you? You have a
Yeah,
podcast.
I do. Yeah. So if you look me up, I'm on all the forums in regards to, only one I think I'm not on is, the two that I'm not on is Twitter and chat, but Warrior by Design is the label that I use to get out to the world. So if you look up on YouTube, Spotify, I've got a podcast, I have a Facebook page for connection, and I've got some new stuff coming in 2024 that's I'm working on currently that I'm hoping will be a little bit more of a path and catalyst forward to supporting as I can.
Warrior by Design is also for your coaching, or is it basically for your content?
Yeah, so everything's on there. I've got a link tree as well that everything's on there from the coaching aspect. I don't do marketing the way that I've been taught to do marketing. I work more on a trust basis in regards to people that want to connect with me. I work with a lot with the veteran community within Australia, first and foremost, because that's where I can physically be most of the time. But that passion is there for working with the masculinity and finding a comfort within that, and one that feels right and connected for each individual. That's my passion within my existence at this current point in time. But I work with everyone and anyone to some degree, but there's I do believe in commitment to self, and that comes with some strong commitments to self in regards to working with each other.
Yeah, beautiful. So yeah, but it's like where the wound has been and where the bridge has been built, it's where we can help the people. And you have been a Terry and being traumatized there, and of course also like in childhood, like all of us. And that's of course where that's feels logic that you help these people first. From there you can, it's like being niche. You cannot serve the whole world. You have to find where your niche is, where your specialty is, where you can help.
Correct.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your time. For me, it's not much brighter than it has been in the start. I thought it's going to be lighter because it's in the morning. The clouds came up, and for you it's evening. We have a 10-hour difference. It's like 8 o'clock, I think, or something like that for you.
That's about 8:20.
Yeah, so have a great dinner or connection with family, closing down.
I will.
And thanks so much.
You too, and I appreciate you having me on here, and I love to see what you do moving forward, mate. It's more people out there, the better.
Yeah, the more people, the better. Yeah, and it's very sought after. I can see more and more podcasts and shows show up with NDEs, out-of-body experience, mystical experiences, spiritual connection. So people, you know what to do. Reach out to us too. Find out other podcasts. I'm not the only one, so I don't want to have the monopoly here. We're all together and share the knowledge, share the wisdom. So goodbye and see you for another show.
For